Thanks for joining into this episode of The Root Brand. Stay healthy and enjoy.
Hello, happy Friday. Welcome to my talk again with Dr. Ram. So I spoke with Dr. Christina Ram, a few weeks ago about the vaccine, and there were lots of questions about it. I'm going to be joined by her momentarily. Hello, welcome. So Dr. Ram's mission, Dr. Christina Ram, by the same namesake. So she's made it her mission to empower people by ridding them of negative environmental and personal, forces that prevent, I'm adjusting my phone, that prevent them from living a healthy and meaningful life. And part of that is sexuality. Her philosophy is simple: cure the cause. Dr. Ram, I don't see you yet. So we're going to be talking about sexual function and sexual dysfunction today. Perfect. There we go. I'm going to bring you in. Oops, somebody else is requesting. Okay. I'm not seeing your request. Christina, if you could try that again. Hi, everyone. No, if everyone could just refrain from requesting to join so I can bring Dr. Raman, because it's hard to bring her in when other people are requesting. Thank you so much. Unable to join. Why is that? Okay, let's try this again. So, Christina, just log out of my live and then log back in, because it won't let me bring you in and you have to request. Hi, Nicole. Hi, Deborah. Hello, everyone. So a little bit about the Root Brand. The Root Brands is this incredible elixir that Dr. Ram created as a doctor. She's a master's of science in rehabilitation counseling. She obtained her first doctorate degree in psychology, which involved both doctorate and postdoc work in child psychology, relationship psychology, business strategy psychology, neurotransmissions of pathways, analytics, diagnostics, cloning, and human monoclonal antibody development. She got her second doctorate degree in strategic science and did her postdoc work at Harvard University in nanobiotechnology and bioscience engineering. So this woman knows what she's talking about. I'm going to try to bring her in. Let's see. So, no, can't bring the root in. I will try you personally. To go live, yeah. You have to go in from your personal, I think, or just log out and log in. Additionally, what makes Dr. Ram so special, oops, how did that happen? Is the mother of four. And she also went through some traumatic experiences. She had Lyme disease, she had cancer 4 times, she had a brain tumor, and she made it a vow to help people find their own paths of empowerment, a path that will lead to a productive life, free of illness. And so she created the Root Brands. Go check it out, therootbrands.com. This is an all-natural elixir. It's quite incredible, and it alleviates things like brain fog, which of course boosts sexual functionality. And that's what we're talking about today. As soon as she comes in, as soon as I see her, I will bring her in. Karina, maybe you can help the Dr. Ram join me. I don't see her on the live yet. She's in her little pouch. Let's see. Yeah, I can't bring you in from the Root Brands for some reason. Hello, everyone. There she is. I found you. Okay, here we go. Well, at least was able to give the whole background in the bio, right? There you are.
We got it.
Hi. Well, I got to discuss your litany of degrees and pedigrees. Hello, husband. Happy Valentine's Day.
Happy Valentine's Day. And
How are you?
I'm going to practice safe sex talk.
Very funny. Oh, I like that. It's the Root brands. I like that. Good branding.
It has 2 layers, and Clayton tried to get away with having the holes without the mask underneath, and I was like, that doesn't work.
Yeah, we don't know what's effective or not effective based on talk last time about the vaccination and masks, which was brilliant. So many compliments, and people were really thrilled to have your expertise on the subject. So thank you. And today we're talking about sexual functionality and how, we need to support our bodies through detox and how to create better focus and relax more naturally and simply. And you've created that wonder elixir. But I want to get started with, because Valentine's is imminent, and everyone's thinking about sex, right? So this is let's talk about sex, okay? So is sexual function dysfunction systemic?
Yes. So sexual dysfunction or sexual functioning is systemic. It has to do with your whole body, which is why it's so important to detox and then supplement so that your hormones and so that your body is in balance. And a lot of people don't know that, but even your gut, if your gut has not been detoxed, then especially with women, you don't have the desire to have sex as much, and when you do, you don't have as good of orgasms when you do have sex. So it's really important to detox and then supplement with the things that will get that going inside your body.
So detox is very important. Can you talk a little bit about how one can do that and include, obviously, your formulation?
So there's different steps of detoxification, and I know that we've spoken about it. Like, it's very important to drink lots of water when you detox. It's very important to sleep, like the rhythm of when you sleep and when you wake up is very, very important. I know that sounds odd, but I'll go back to your question and start with the beginning. Our bodies are very toxic, and as we age, they become even worse because we're exposed to so many things. And one of the reasons that there's so much sexual dysfunction is that as the toxins and the heavy metals build up in your body, it affects women and men. And I know we talked a lot about men because, men have brought that subject up very, very much, many times. And Viagra came out, and Cialis, and a lot of different things that increase the nitric oxide. But really, if you could get to the root of the problem and detox the body, there wouldn't be the need for as many things like a Viagra or a Cialis. Not to say that you can't have issues, but because these toxins are building up throughout the body, it causes the sexual organs not to work effectively. And therefore, when your sexual organs are not working effectively, you don't have the desire, even if you love someone, to want to have a sexual relationship. And then, like I said, even when you do have sex, here's another problem. If you have toxins in the body and heavy metals, and you haven't gotten them out and then supplemented with the right things that increase the hormones and increase the sex drive, then when you are having sex, you don't enjoy it as much as you can enjoy it.
Can I add something to that from the other
person? Please.
And guys love to talk about the subject, but I'll hit on it from a little different perspective.
Clayton, Dr. Rom's husband, by the way, for everyone.
That's pretty much my title. It's like, I'm the guy with the girl. But there's a mechanism or a thought process called the detox triangle, which is vision, hearing, and erectile function in men. And you see this because it's the smallest arterial components of the body that are in your eyes, your ears, and with our willy, as Christina says.
That's what I call
And
my sons. I don't call other anyway.
so with this is when we look at systemic toxicity, right? We know that heavy metals and other environmental toxins are extremely negatively inflammatory, and they'll cause damage to the arterial lining and the endothelial lining, which inhibits nitric oxide production. But that negative inflammation starts, you can say, distally, or at the farthest part in the smallest parts of our arteries and vascular system. So if a guy is having problems with getting things up properly, it's not part of the aging process, and that's part of the reason that we're starting to see some of these issues in young men much earlier on, 20s, 30s. It's not aging, it's a matter of toxicity, right?
So if
And,
you take nitric oxide supplements, is that something that would help?
well, and this is going to be something I'm going to let her talk about because she's more beautiful, she's smarter, and she worked on Viagra and can talk about those pathways. But the key in bringing this together is where these toxins cause damage first. Like, is in the small arteries that cause inflammation, so blood flow doesn't get to where it needs to go. And the nitric oxide component comes down to the damage to the endothelial lining, which is where nitric oxide is produced. So you can try to supplement with things to produce nitric oxide, but as Christina does such a phenomenal job of discussing, and what our entire focus and mission is about, is you can try to throw water on a house fire, but if you can't get the fire out and you still try to add things to that fire, you're still not addressing the underlying problem. So as you clean stuff up, if you can remove a lot of the toxins and pollutants that are causing the damage, and that's why Clean Slate is really so special in this process, is because of its ability to work from head to toe through your vascular system and start to grab onto some of these little toxins that cause damage and then slowly allow them to be removed. It's like being able to put that fire out in a building, and then when you start allowing the construction contractors to rebuild, that's what our body's meant to do. And then you can start providing extra tools like Zero In and other things, diet, lifestyle, beets. Beets are phenomenal for nitric oxide, and
Avocados,
you go for there. So
artichokes, avocados, pineapple. There's foods, and when you ask me about detoxification, those are foods actually that will detox and help increase the nitric oxide, which is very important. And I think, so a lot of your scientists talk about nitric oxide and how important it is to sexual function. And I was actually at Pfizer on the sales and marketing side, and then in all the companies, I always ended up moving over to the medical clinical side, and doing a lot of stuff with it. It was really a fun product to work with Viagra. I enjoyed it. But one of the things they don't talk about is that all of the pharmaceutical products that do help with sexual function also have some side effects, right? That can cause issues like cardiovascular issues with people, so you have to worry. Like, if you have these illnesses, you shouldn't take this product, because it's not really supporting the body to do it naturally. It's causing the body to do it for a certain time period to increase the nitric oxide. So if you can naturally detox the body, increase the neurotransmitters of the brain and of the stomach so they're functioning right, that increases your sex drive. And so one of the reasons people that have depression and anxiety, one of the reasons people that have anxiety and depression don't want to have sex is because their brain is off balance. So I know we spoke about this, Christina, but my desire was to help people detox naturally in their body through a process that they continuously do it so that they can have a better body, a better quantity and quality of life. And I always say this, I never claim to cure anything. We're trying to support each body at being perfect at what it is, because, we're made to be these people. We're each different. How do we make each of our bodies as perfect as they can be? And we do that by naturally detoxing and supplementing. But if you were to increase nitric oxide but not change how the neurotransmitters were doing in the brain and in the stomach, then it would be a short amount of time that you would want to experience something sexual. And, being a mother of 4 and having worked a lot throughout my career and having friends and family and like you and like everyone else, we have busy lives. Sometimes we might plan on having sex at 8 o'clock, but then there's a knock on the door, right? Or we maybe want to plan on having sex, so men will take a Viagra or women to prepare for that, and something changes. It doesn't work, and then people get upset because that window to have sex wasn't there, and they can't be spontaneous. But if you could detox and then supplement, it becomes part of you. You become
Created is something that does both. It detox and offers the supplementations that you need. Obviously, eating things like beets, avocados, pineapples, and artichokes will help. Taking a nitric oxide supplement will help in the moment, but you want to keep your body producing it on its own. And how you do that is through the detoxification process and supplementation. Now, tell us a little bit about your formulation of the Root Brands. And I also pinned the website so everyone can go and investigate it on their own. Check it out. It's an incredible creation from Dr. Ram and her husband Clayton. And it's therootbrands.com. I pinned the code. In order to sign in, you have to use the purist as one word so you can get into the website. Okay, so therootbrands.com, the purist. So Dr. Ram, tell us a little bit about your formulation and why it's so successful for all those things you talked about.
Well, so I've worked with products in detoxification for a large part of my career. Some of it pharmaceutical, biotech, and now, of course, nutraceutical. But there's been lots of formulations that have like a zeolite or something that detoxes. I actually, spent 3 years postdoc at Harvard trying to learn how to perfect this formula. It's very different than anyone else had. And what I did was I was able to take different types of technology and bioscience to create a product that starts with something that's a natural zeolite and was able to source it from a place that I'm pretty sure no one else is able to source it from, that has the highest concentration of that I could find. And then I actually utilized different techniques like magnets, polarization, heating, cooling methods, and proprietary formulations, which took, when you look at this bottle, the zeolite is not actually still in it. It's a silicon dioxide, but the pure part of the silicon dioxide that can really rip things apart in the body and support the body. There had not been tons of research on that. There's tons of research on zeolites, but I had worked with a lot of orthosilic acids, which is your second biggest element on our earth. It's everywhere. And I wanted to create a formula that could achieve something for populations to help them with the detoxification and the supplement process. So I was able to add trace minerals that I embedded and impregnated into this formula so that when you're detoxing, you're also helping your body supplement. And I also added a very high concentration of vitamin C as a catalyst, but I created a different form of the vitamin C so that it would go in systemically throughout the body. I really wanted something that was a baseline so that people could start feeling and living better. I wanted people to wake up and to enjoy the lives that they have, and hopefully be able to live a lot longer. So that was the goal.
Formulations. You have Clean Slate and Zero In. Can you talk about the difference between the two?
Yeah.
Supplement versus the tincture.
Yeah. So this is the real detoxification formula that people need to start with. But when you're detoxing, again, making sure that your body has the right neurotransmitters and you're supporting all of that, not just in the brain, but throughout the body, is extremely important. Extremely important into cognitive functioning, into performance as far as physical. So that, of course, relates to sexual performance, and to the body's ability to be at its top level. And I wanted to start with a formula that could impact the stomach, the heart, and the brain in a positive way.
Can I add something to that?
Yes, always.
Please.
Christina, just so you know, we call this foreplay.
No.
Great. Right? But
your dinner conversation must be something else.
That's actually how we got to be. We were friends because we worked together, and it was interesting to talk on the phone about scientific subjects. So yeah.
But the crucial part is to understand the difference between the two, right? Men and women function completely differently. we're like a pump, right? So it's, as long as our vascular function is working properly, which comes to environmental toxicology and getting that pump to work properly, which is veins and arteries and nitric oxide, because we don't have a problem getting in the mood, right? If we see two squirrels running down the street, we're ready to go.
Well, some people have a problem getting in.
But for women, it's a much more complex process. And what we hear quite often is, oh, I'm not in the mood, right? And that's where the neurotransmission, the dopamine, the serotonin, the right balance of hormones and the right balance of neurotransmitters and the reduction of stress is so important, because if any of those things are out of balance even a little bit, the mood is gone. And what do we know? Women, especially as they age, if they're over the age of 30, want to have sex more than men do. But it's making sure that everything just lines up properly. And we know, like a lot of the work that you do with yoga and such, is there isn't one single thing that you need to do. We are a very complex system. So you have to make sure that you're addressing this amazing system in multiple aspects. We've got to remove the bad stuff, but then you've got to make sure that you're adding and tweaking some of those key other areas, because we hear constantly now, and a lot of the research that's going on, especially in autism, is on the microbiome of the gut and the gut-brain connection. And we hear constantly that the gut is your second brain, and how important the microbiome is. And like Christina was hitting on, 95% of the neurotransmitters that are produced in our body are produced in our gut. They go to the brain through the vagus nerve, but they're produced there. And the key then is, how do you make sure that your gut is, one, in the right environment to do it, but also has the right components to do it well. And
I didn't realize the statistic was so high, 95%. Wow.
So
gut brain.
There's a difference of opinion on that. Some people say 75. It used to not be even known. It wasn't studied a lot. And now we're understanding even more and more how important that is. And actually, there's a huge connection, and I'm sure Clayton knows this as well, again, between the brain, the heart, and the stomach. It's the three connections. And being able to really support that was the goal in producing this formula. Because to zero in on the issue and to change it to support the body so it's working more effectively is really important. And, you know, as a person that was a psychologist, I dealt with everything from prostitutes that would come that we would deal with, to people that did not want to have sex. I mean, I dealt with a large variety of people. And one thing that became very clear to me at a very young age, at about the age of 24, was that sex is important. It's a part of life. It's something that being raised in the South, I never spoke about. I didn't talk about it. I was raised in a home where, you know, women just don't talk about that. And so it was just not something that I had discussions on, but I had to learn to have those discussions with patients. And being able to hear how it affected people's lives negatively when they didn't have a sex drive, or affected marriages negatively, became very, very important. And so I look at sex, to be honest, as part of quality of life. I mean, I think it's something that is important, and that we've got to support people's bodies so they don't lose that. We're not robots, we're people, and we need to still have the desire. And that's where zero in, when I went into the lab and worked on it, you know, Clayton had presented with different formulas to me to review. I looked at a lot of them, changed a lot of things, worked on different additional formulations on it. But I did want something that helped performance in the overall area, and not just the brain, but again, the heart and the stomach and your sexual organs.
Bless you twice.
I was asking the best way to take this under the sublingually is the best way. It's the best absorption. Okay, and in like a glass of water, not as effective.
You want to answer that?
You can answer.
So with the new solution, because, and I'll let Christina hit on this with the importance of trace minerals, but we added trace minerals to the formula, and I know that there was, we got some feedback from some of your followers, like, you changed it, it doesn't taste right. We added the trace minerals to to really supercharge the formula. And because of the real salty flavor now, you can take it straight in your mouth. Some people don't like the flavor. If you put it in water, it doesn't change anything, and you actually need to hydrate. So whether you take it directly in your mouth and you get some mucosal or sublingual absorption, or oh, here we go.
I'm just so happy I can taste things again.
I was the one, and I think I told you this, Christina. I pushed when formula launched. There were all these zeolite formulas, and I'm like, and people kept saying, "Are they like yours?" I'm like, "They're nothing like the one that I created," because I actually went back to school to create the current formula that's out here, and for 3 years. And so I really wanted it to be the best thing so people could take it and not worry about putting trace minerals in. Clayton actually fought me on that because it was considerably more expensive to do that, and he was worried what people would say about the taste. And here's what I said: people, it's like yoga or like Pilates or doing something. Sometimes things aren't easy to do when you make a change. Maybe it tastes different or it's different. I don't care. You want to do what's best for people's bodies. And if there's people that don't want to do what's best for their bodies, I can't control that. But I want to be able to offer, as a scientist, something that will help people, but at the same time, not just detox them, but again, help supplement while it's detoxing. And that's why finally Clayton agreed to the change that I wanted. And I went to labs all over.
It tastes great. It's slightly salty. I mean, it's, you can taste something.
We've been in the sex talk about salty stuff in your mouth.
Oh.
I love it. Minerals help with gut protection, and that's really important. I do want you to write a story for me on the detox triangle. I have not heard of that, and I'd love to know more about that. But I want to get back to sexual dysfunction, sexual function. You touched on age. Does it change with age, and how and why?
Yes, so it does change with age. And Clayton is right that women many times will have a higher sex drive when they get older. However, when they go through menopause, that changes again, right? A lot of women that go through menopause completely lose their sex drive because of the hormones, and there's not as much lubricant. They don't feel as good as far as wanting that. But until they hit menopause, they usually have a higher sex drive than men. So like men are hitting their peak, around the age between 18 and 25, 26 years old. And then they hit 30, 32, they start having not as high of a sex drive, which is good and bad. They become more tuned into work, more tuned into family. At the age of 18, Clayton's right, most men will want to have sex if they see whatever they see. It was interesting. I was in a class when I was 21 years old, and I'll never forget this. It was a psychology class working on my PhD, and the teacher said, what is the main difference if there's a man and a woman and they go and they take a drink at a drinking fountain? What are they both thinking? And we went around the class. The summary was the women are thinking, oh, that's a nice guy, or that's a cute guy, or I like his clothes, or he's funny. But the men are thinking one thing: what does she look like without clothes on? What is she like sexually? And I was shocked. I was like, wait a minute, I've got I never realized that that's what they were cognitive, thinking. And it's a fact. It's a biological fact. So that's where their minds are, and they're able, of course, to have sex a lot, and they're thinking about it. But that changes as they age, because their body, and Clayton's right, stress, toxins, illness, all of that contributes to the body changing how it can function and how it can produce. If you are detoxing as a man, I want to say this: when you do studies and you look at, and this is one of the studies I want to do with Clean Slate and Zero In, when you look at men wanting to have sex, men being able to perform, because those are two different things, right? Some men want to have sex, but they can't perform. If they're detoxing and supplementing, they can actually change that. That takes time, but they can change that because they can cause the body, just like stem cells can help the body. When you use different things in your diet, it can help the body change. And I'll give you one more example. If anyone told me that working out could not change the way you feel, I would say that's absolutely not true. When you work out, it increases the endorphins, it helps your mind, it helps your heart, it helps your gut. It's very, very important. So when people say to me, how does a natural product help sex drive? How does a natural product affect cognitive functioning? It's
And
just like working out.
both men and women, it helps.
Both men and women. And I think that's important because I think it needs to help women and men, because we've had so much of this discussion about men and helping them. Well, you need to help women too, because when they go through menopause and they're having problems with hormones, they can still have a sex drive if they're detoxing and supplementing the body.
Can I hit on two things to fill some gaps? The interesting part is when you look at the science and hitting on women, right? We talk about menopause all the time. And the signs of menopause are hormonal, brain fog, osteoporosis risk, lethargy, right? You don't have as much energy. Your endocrine system kind of goes to shot. Your metabolism gets bad and you start to get fat. It's from a cascade, because what's interesting is lead is stored in bone. We know mercury and aluminum are very neurotoxic. All of them are endocrine disruptors. And one thing that's really important, as I hit on this, like mercury toxicity affects men and women differently. Mercury in men will affect their central nervous system and their brain, but in women, it affects their reproductive and endocrine systems more heavily, thyroid and reproductive organs. But lead is really interesting, because what science has shown is that lead being stored in bone around the age of 50, it starts to leach out of bone back into the bloodstream in women. So what happens in that process? You have bone that becomes brittle, right? Because the lead was displacing calcium and vitamin D and some of the components, the collagens and such, in the bone. It leaches back into the bloodstream. Lead is neurotoxic, so some of it's going to go to the brain, which is going to cause brain fog. It's hormone mimetic, so it's going to block some of the estrogen binding sites on cells and in your body. So your body is naturally producing estrogen, but the natural estrogen is no longer able to get to where it needs to go. So it builds up in your bloodstream. You become hormonal. It screws up your endocrine system because of the same aspects of blocking binding sites, and free lead along with mercury creates absolute chaos. So all of these symptoms, this process that is diagnosed as menopause, is just systemic toxicity resurfacing. And there was a couple comments about, is clean slate good for dogs? Absolutely. And there was a comment of, is this problem in the gut? You hear so many people say, oh, the problems start in your gut, whether it's for neurotransmitters or your immune system and everything. And that's actually not true. The problems that we have now and the problems that we discuss actually start in the womb, because we are bathed in this toxic soup that we used to think, being in the placenta, was this beautiful, pristine environment. But the Environmental Working Group proved years ago with their body burden study that that's not the case. So we, and especially our kids now, they're born into, and they're conceived in this toxic soup. So we're completely polluted from the jump.
So bad. I mean, the percentage of ADHD alone caused by heavy metals and pollutants and environmental toxicity is just astounding.
And I'll post a couple of the interviews that we've done on autism, ADD, and ADHD that are on our YouTube channel. But when we're done, I'll post it on here so people
talk about that.
follow-up. We just had a phenomenal one that we did on Tuesday about collagen and fluoride, because all of this comes together. Like we're talking about, it's a systemic issue that we can try to narrow down into specific topics. Like we want to talk about sex today and how this affects things. But what's so crucial to understand is, if we're talking about autism to Alzheimer's or cardiovascular disease or neuropathy or female function or male function, the etiology and the cause is all the same, right? It's all one thing, right? And that's why Cure the Causes, her new book,
and you can't
publicity,
evolve if you're constricted. You're literally, the heavy metals and the toxins suppress your immune system. It's a terrible thing, and that's how you get sick. That's how you stay sick. Excuse me. You can get sick and get over, but it will keep you down. And from having Lyme disease how debilitating that is. And then you got cancer 4 times. I mean, what was going on in your body at the time?
Well, when I had a brain tumor and spinal tumor, melanoma, squamous, everything. I mean, they had to take this nose and pull it back and do a V to get rid of the cancer. They had to do this up here, and they thought they were going to take this eye out. It was a lot. And so my body was extremely toxic. And until I actually had the ability to work on formulas, because I had worked on formulas in my 20s, and I think I expressed that to you. When I first lost a child, had cancer, I immediately worked on my own formulas, and that really caused me, like a lot of mothers and a lot of women, and I just want to stop and say this because everyone gives, I think, me attention because I went to school for a long time, but the truth is, as a mother that had a child with cancer, and as a cancer not victim, but person that had cancer, I actually researched a lot on my own before I had all these degrees. What do I do? And then went back to school to even work on them more. That's why a lot of your biggest advocates and your most knowledgeable people are mothers or fathers or people that have really looked into things on their own and researched it. A lot of them know more than medical doctors about the topic because you're not taught about heavy metals in medical school. So when all this was happening, I knew something was wrong with my body. I knew that as a child, with all the planes flying over our farms and pesticide, and I was exposed to all kinds of heavy metals, I started understanding I have to get this out of my body. So this formula, when I first worked on using zeolites and different minerals and spirulina and turmeric, curcumin, and all of that, I was at the age of 24, 25, because doing it for myself and learning. And then when I went back to work on it, because John Sally, I was working with the NBA and the NFL on some stuff, and they wanted me to work on something. There were all these formulas out there, and I met different scientists, and it still was not what I felt like was needed. I wanted a formula that could help people. And I think I told you this, Christina. I went into manufacturing plants and made the formula. I think a lot of people use different formulas that I made. I never got paid on any of it. I just wanted the world to have it. And it wasn't until...
Is safe for pets?
Absolutely.
Very safe for pets.
Well,
and how do you, so you can give it to your pets and obviously yourself, and how do you test for heavy metals in your system before you can get to this point, realizing you have, an issue, toxicities levels? How do you test for that?
So I'll hit on 2 parts. And my upbringing and my background is actually around veterinary medicine. My parents have had a veterinary clinic for 42 years. They just retired in December. But for the last 16 years, my parents have worked with me with some of the precursors to clean slate in their veterinary clinic. And if you're a pet owner, there's 2 things that are absolutely crucial for you to do with your pets. One is clean slate, because you've got to get the metals, the pollutants, the fire retardants, all of these chemicals that are in their environment, that are in your environment, out of them, because they're smaller, right? Their metabolism is much quicker. We know that dogs age 7 times faster than humans. And it's the same reason that coal miners would take a canary into the coal mine, because a canary is much smaller. If the methane or the carbon dioxide levels shoot up quickly, the canary will die long before it's going to have that effect on the humans, so they know, okay, time to leave. So if your dog has allergies, or your dog has skin issues, or these are pollutant issues that affect you the same way. It's just giving you the indicators earlier on. And you've got to get that stuff out. The second part is diet. It is the most important component to taking care of your pets, is giving them as natural food sources as possible, because of the chemicals, the pollutants, all the stuff that's in those artificial foods or poorly processed foods that continually cause more problems. So,
So,
and that's the testing part.
how do you test for you?
So the testing part's really interesting, right? Because we are all polluted. But the hard part to understand with these metals, with mercury, cadmium, arsenic, lead, aluminum, cesium, strontium, is they're forever chemicals, but they're extremely toxic. So when they get into your body, whether you breathe them in, whether they're injected into you, whether you're born with them, they don't stay in your bloodstream. They can't, because if they did, they would circulate through your system, damage your organs, and kill you. So your body will sequester them, and we know like mercury, lead, and aluminum are neurotoxic. They go here really, really quickly. They'll get into your liver and be stored. They'll be stored in your kidneys. They get stored in fat. And this is why people get fat. They don't get fat because they're lazy. They get fat because their body is storing those toxins in the only mechanism that it has to keep them away from the rest of your body. So from a measurement standpoint, there's only a couple really good ways, and Dr. Wolfgang Wall, who's over in Germany, has created like an MRI that can measure depleted uranium and heavy metals to get a systemic view of what's going on. But there's only, I think, 2 of them. They cost about $5 million. What
So
I found is like,
integrative doctors, if you have an integrative physician, means a doctor who is a Western medicine doctor, an MD, but who also studies holistic remedies and treatments. You can ask an integrative physician about how to test for heavy metals, because nobody has access to this doctor in Germany, unfortunately. But
what's so important is
that
excretion.
Yeah, but Christina's right. So Christina, you ask, how do people get tested? There's a heavy metal test that you can take, just like, you can take a test to see what nutrients are in the body, or if your body reacts to a pharmaceutical product, a pharmacodynamic test. There is a heavy metal test, and we actually are thinking about offering the test through Root, or I even was thinking about offering it through the Dr. Christina Rahm, because I think people need to be tested.
So it's through urine, right? You have to look at excretion because of what the body can get out. And the important part, heavy metal toxicity actually shuts off glutathione production. It shuts off methylation, and there's so many things about MTHFR and such, but that's all due to epigenetics and the damage from the metals themselves. We can't flush this stuff out, so you need something to grab onto it. So if you wanted to see what's coming out, urine excretion analysis is the best way. And what I've found to be successful in testing is to do a baseline, just allowing the analysis to show what your body is excreting without doing anything. And then what we normally do is we'll have someone use Clean Slate for a week and then do a follow-up test and then look at what's coming out. But the hard part is that only gives us a snapshot at that moment. So it's the process of going every day. But that's really the only way to do it well.
Someone get in touch with you to set up a urinalysis?
If they wanted to get in touch with me through, I don't know how we need to do that. I mean, you could get in touch with me, or I have an email. I don't know if I should say it. They could go to the website.
The Root brands, and then instant message you there?
Yes.
Okay.
And I can help that. Absolutely.
So check your Instagram, right? Good. So go to the Root brands and send a message to Dr. Rahm directly there. And can drinking water take a lot of the heavy metals out? A lot of the heavy metals come from drinking certain water, like tap water. So that's a big no, right?
Right. So you want to drink water, but you want to use water that is purified and has electrolytes, pH balanced. I mean, people ask me all the time, how important is water? I'm like, it's very important. And the right water is like drinking water with the fluoride, and some water has a lot of other heavy metals in it. I don't want to get into a whole discussion about that, but you definitely need to drink the right water and detox the body while you're doing it. By the way, people are welcome to text.
Water, great water to order too, by the way. And if you sign up, you can get use your Purist 20 discount. It is a purified water, free of heavy metals and toxins, and it's delivered boxed water. I like it
Okay.
because it's not in a plastic container. You can order it and have it sent to you at home. It's made from recycled paper, and they also reforest. Uh, um, they've, I think, planted 1 million trees in the American National Forest, which is really really nice. Business with a purpose.
And
So look,
water is crucial because we're 70% water.
I still have a
So
bunch of about sex. And I know that
let's
was
go.
Christina, I want to say this because I don't want to. If people want to text me on Instagram and reference the Purist on my Instagram, I'll answer too. So they just need to reference the Purist.
So you talked earlier about the difference between nutraceuticals, okay, and pharmaceuticals, and the side effects of pharmaceuticals. So better to use the natural remedies for sexual dysfunction to create functionality. Um, how does dopamine and serotonin affect sex drive and performance?
Well, so when you do not have enough serotonin or dopamine or norepinephrine and epinephrine, it affects the ability for the body and the transmitters to even want to think that you want to have sex. So basically, when it's depleted, especially with women, because men, it is more of a nitric oxide issue, but it also does involve the neurotransmitters. With women, women are made differently. They communicate differently with the sexual organs, and that's the way I explain it. So if you do not have enough in your system, or if it's off balance, you're simply not thinking about it. Do not have the desire. You're not communicating with the sexual organs and the body. We're very different than men. If men are not sexually attracted, sometimes they cannot have sex, right? They can't perform. With women, though, you can have sex even if you don't want to have sex, right? So I think with women, it's more of an issue of, do you feel like you want to have sex, and do you feel that way during the day at different times of the day? How much of that do you want to feel? And to do that, if you're suffering from depression, anxiety, a lot of different OCD, all of those, you just don't want to perform as much. One of the reasons people that have schizophrenia or bipolar want to have sex more is they have an increase, right? I always explain it like this. When people are bipolar, when they're depressed, they're down here, but when the body goes up with the dopamine and serotonin, and it's like the music's turned on really loud, they want to constantly have sex. So the issue is, when that's depleted in your system, you just don't want to have sex. And it's a very easy way to think about it. A lot of people understand that people that are manic want to have sex, and that's because there's such an increase. So when you're depleting that out of the system, and even when you've got bipolar, part of that increase is because it's too high, because of the fact that your body is toxic. I mean, it's people wonder why we have more homeless people that have schizophrenia and bipolar, and it's because our world is toxic. And I said this to you before, Christina, when people tell me that global warming and environmental factors aren't happening, that's a joke to me, because absolutely our environment has become toxic, and we've got to take care of it, right?
They have toxicity of the brain, if they're saying that.
That's right.
Right. They're a product of the thing that they're in denial of.
Yeah. Yes.
Victim.
A victim.
So does detoxifying the vascular system affect men and women differently? We talked about the importance of both men and women needing to do this for various reasons and times in their lives, but how does it affect them differently?
Oh, keep going.
Clayton.
Answer that.
Yeah.
So I'll
he
handle.
wants to answer all the questions, and that's what I'm trying to.
I kind of like to hear you talk.
Well, I'm so happy to hear from you too.
I had to jump in and get my time with the CNC Greatness Factory. Like, having one Christina is great, but if you can have two Christinas at once,
We've got to go back to the topic, because he's going to get off topic.
So for the vascular function for men, and I can speak from the male standpoint, is absolutely crucial because it's blood flow related, right? But also when we look at women, heart attacks and heart disease are the #1 killers of women. So you look at the importance, right? And this is where you can dive into science and geek out like I have and like she's done, or you can just accept the fact that clinical studies of over 350,000 people done in Europe show that heart disease, diabetes, cancer, obesity, autism, Alzheimer's are all caused by heavy metals and environmental toxins. And that's not a small study, it's 350,000 people. So whether it's vascular function, whether it's endocrine function, and all of these things tie together, right? We want to hit on individual segments, but they're all interconnected. The most important thing is removing what's causing the problem. And then once you do that, we are made to regenerate, right? We are made to be amazing. We are this amazing quantum mechanics miracle that is well beyond what we are physically. And people are starting to understand that with what we are spiritually, what we are emotionally, and starting to tie together the physical, the mental, the spiritual, the emotional. And then when we tie that all together with sex and the connectivity, and that's why we're both here, because sex is great with two people, with one, not so much. I mean, that was my childhood, right? Being a teenager.
Okay.
But I don't know, but it's true. But the key then is really rethinking this whole approach, right? Because we've always thought about what can we add to improve things, but it's really a simple equation of addition by subtraction. It's not what you can add, it's first what you can get out. And then once you get that stuff out, then good things can take place. So
it's like renovating a home. If you're really going to renovate, like Clayton wants to renovate our home right now, he wants to gut the home to make it new. And we've been redoing it, but there's certain things, it doesn't work just to redo it or to add paint. You just got to get rid of everything and restructure it. And that's how your body is. It really is. And I know that sounds simple, but you got to take the trash out. And I always say that you just got to take it out. And so for me, it's just common sense. I take the trash out of my house every day. So when people ask me, how often do you detox? Well, detoxification, whether it's drinking water, eating the right food, working out, doing all of the things that I need to do, that's a daily process for me, because just like I love my house, I love my body more, because this is what I'll take with me. I can sell my house. I can't sell this. So I've got to take care of it.
There was a comment that just, I didn't see who posted it, but there's this interesting soft underbelly to sexual relationships and the herpes, right? No one likes to talk about the herpes, but I was looking up some statistics on this, that 2 out of 3 people under the age of, I think it's 50, have type 1 herpes, which is mouth sores and such. So herpes type 1. Between the age of 18, oh, go ahead.
I thought it was like 90% of the population.
It is. It's about 90%.
Really high, yeah.
I'm sorry, I wasn't so great.
So did that work? This woman said that Petra, she's been participating a lot in this chit chat. Thank you, Petra. She says her dog had a wound and she healed it in one day, and it was a herpes sore by putting some drops of the clean slate on it. That's fascinating. I mean, yeah. It just goes to show what is happening inside your body when you take this. The healing.
I want to show you this. So I fell.
I didn't push her.
I was working out yesterday. And I was on the bike. I was on 2 phones trying to do 2 things, working out in the morning. And I'm sure you've done that, Christina. We were just trying to, and then I got on the ball to do the sit-ups, and I fell because I had 2 phones. So this was bleeding everywhere. Clayton immediately put the, clean slate on it, and it just sealed it, because it'll cauterize it. So like if you have sores on your mouth, same thing, it'll get rid of them. Because, well, we don't claim that, but you can try it, because what we've seen in the case studies is that it will, and that's probably where he was going. I don't know about that.
And there's published clinical proof that clinoptilolite, so these little cages that Christina has done such an amazing job of creating that work systemically, have the ability to bind viral fragments. all kinds. But in that process,
you should say it again. So they have the ability to bind viral fragments. There's lots of research. So when people ask about the vaccine, Christina, that's why I brought that up. If you're going to take the vaccine, you know, my advice would be to take something like the Clean Slate so that you can bind it, because you don't want aluminum or any kind of heavy metals in the body. And again, Clayton's right. There's all kinds of research around that, and that's very important, especially now. And I don't mean to get back into the subject about viruses, but when you have viruses, you have more bacteria, you have more fungus. And so there's also a lot of research that show that if you can make formulas like this correctly, it's able to bind those so that you can get that out of the body. And that's very important, I think, especially right now.
And when we talk about sex, you got to talk about the other side, because there's two viruses that are sexually transmitted that people don't want. People don't want herpes. They don't want HIV or AIDS. And the important part, I think people have become more cognizant over the last year, that when we talk about viruses of all kinds, we as humans are naturally antiviral. We're made to be that way. We have an immune system, but you have to have your body functioning properly to be as defensive as possible. So what makes this little guy unique is these fragments
Clean Slate
have the ability to bind some viral fragments. And what this means is that as a virus is replicating in the body, it kicks off more viral fragments. These little guys that are found in Clean Slate can grab onto and bind some of those fragments, which slows down that replication process. And by removing the toxins, the heavy metals that inhibit or suppress proper immune function, you see improved immune function, a slower replicating virus, and your body is able to do what it does naturally, which is fight and win of all kinds. So, and it all ties back to exposure, but also opportunity. Healthy, what do we know? A healthy body is just that. It's healthy. We're antiviral, we're antifungal, we're antimicrobial. We are the cure for cancer because we have tumor suppressor genes, P21, P27, P53. It's part of us, just has to work properly.
So just to remind the viewers, and I'm going to wrap it up because Dr. Ram and her husband Clayton have been so incredible sharing their knowledge with us today on sexual function and dysfunction. 75 to 95% of neurotransmitters are produced in the gut. So we have to constantly detox, and they've talked about the detox triangle, which I'm so fascinated by, and blood flow, and what helps our bodies do that, to keep production of nitric oxide going strong, which aids in sexual functionality in both men and women. And what they've created is the Root Brands. So check out the rootbrands.com. And then / the Purist to sign in, because you need a sign in name. So use the Purist. Check out the newest formulation. They've added trace minerals to it. We have to remove what's causing the problem in our system. And this formulation not only detoxes, but it also heals. So it eliminates a lot of the heavy metal toxicities in the environment that we talked about as well. And it's all about creating a heightened sexual experience and having that go all the way through to our, 80s, right?
Right. That's right.
I don't even know.
It's possible. So that's absolutely right. And that's why some people, if they detox, can have children even when they're a lot older than 30 or 40. But not that I'm trying to have children. But yeah.
You already have 4.
Thank you, Christina, so much.
Notes all the time. I just love talking to you, Dr. Ram. You are so interesting, so fascinating. You not only share your incredible wisdom from your multitude of degrees, including your Harvard postdoc work, but all your experience at the various pharmaceutical companies. Yes, I would kiss you too if I was with you right now.
I'll give her one for you.
It's wonderful to know someone like you. You're such a resource for me and my mission with Purist. But also the experience that you've had in your life and how traumatic that has been, and having cancer 4 times and a brain tumor and lime and all sorts of other things. You really have created something special with the Root brand. So for those watching, check out the website, learn more about it, learn how to detox your system so you can maximize your immune strength. And this is really important for all aspects of your life, for healing, for wellness, for sexuality. Valentine's Day is coming up. Place an order now for someone you love. It's a really good gift, by the way. That's what I want. Valentine's.
I love the red, by the way. It's very pretty on you. Your red outfit.
Yeah.
Really good.
For Valentine's Day, right?
I like it. Yeah.
I'm a purist. I adhere to tradition, right? So
yep. I have Valentine hearts on every sofa in my room, and we're not at home right now, but hearts hanging up everywhere. I love Valentine's Day.
We're having a sex conversation in the hotel room.
Because we're working here.
Wait, thank you so much for joining us too. What a treat to have you and all the information that you have. I'm sending you both so much love on Valentine's Day. And thank you again.
So much. Have a great day.
Everyone check out the Root Brands. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you soon. Bye. Have a great weekend.
Thank you for watching this episode of The Root Brand. To buy these life-changing products, click on the link below. Remember to like, subscribe, and share to help get the word out. Right now, we have an exciting opportunity to become a Root Direct dealer. The pay is lucrative and a monthly passive income. If interested, email us at therootbrandcommunity@gmail.com.